Torah Life Ministries come out of the world. Messiah people seek the truth.
All right, everybody, it's Paul Neeson with Torah Life Ministries, and here we are with some Q&A that we got this week about the scriptures. Somebody had emailed me via YouTube and asked me, they said that many Christians out there today are freaking out and thinking they were to follow everything the old guidelines of our Creator told us, and saying that it was fulfilled through Yeshua, so we no longer have to follow those because Yeshua came and fulfilled those guidelines and instructions. Well, they go on to say that, so it says we shouldn't be following that. Well, I'm not going to give you my opinion. I'm going to tell you what Scripture truly says. There was no old law. The word Torah in Scripture means guidelines and instructions. And anyone out there who thinks that they are released from following the guidelines and instructions of our Creator that He specifically told us we shall follow throughout all our generations is very highly either deceived, mistaken, or they're just not doing their homework. Now, I do believe Yeshua is the sacrificial lamb, and the sacrificial system of animals is currently not in place because of Yeshua. However, are we still to follow the guidelines and the instructions? Yes, they are so important that Yahweh our Creator took them off paper and put them on our heart. That's the new covenant He made with us. And He told us not to follow these things because you have to, but follow them because you want to. It's not a salvation issue to say we did this or we didn't do that, because we're not saved by our works, we're saved by the blood of Messiah. However, it becomes a questionable salvation issue is when you become a believer in Yeshua and you accept Him as your Messiah, your heart should change where you hate the things that you once loved, and now your desire and all you do is to follow the guidelines and instructions of our Creator. If that does not happen, if you're deceived saying, well, now I have grace so I don't have to follow the guidelines and instructions of my Creator, you are highly mistaken and even questionable if you've really changed from your previous life. Understand, people, the grace that Yeshua brings is not an excuse to keep living in sin. The grace that He brings is supposed to take away our sin nature so we no longer desire to sin. And if we live a life without sin, we find ourselves living a life according to the instructions of our Creator as written in the guidelines and instructions found in the Scriptures. Understand, there's no Old and New Testament. There's the original and the renewed Testament. Those were so important they took them off paper and put them on our heart. The church today is not teaching a scriptural message. And for them to tell you that you don't have to follow these things, you know what the church will do? The church will go out there and tell you that that's Old Testament, you don't have to follow it. Well, they say that about everything that's inconvenient for them. But what about tithing? That's an Old Testament thing, but they preach about that just about once a week, if not even more. So we have to understand the history of the Scriptures, and our Creator, and understand that Yeshua was telling people they need to follow these guidelines and instructions if they really want to walk a life that He was telling us to walk. And that's why all of the apostles followed those guidelines and instructions, and none of them transgressed from it. And you shouldn't either, whatever you call yourself out there. And remember, we're not saved by works, but when we're saved, His guidelines and instructions should be all the works that we have a passion to do. So we have to understand, He says, my commandments shall not be burdensome to those who love me. He goes out there and says that He's coming when He comes back as a thief in the night. But He's coming only to surprise those people that aren't ready for Him, that aren't waiting for Him. And if you're one of those people that think that you can go on living the same life you lived before you accept Yeshua as your Messiah because you have grace now, so it's okay to live in sin or transgression of the guidelines and instructions, well, you're one of those people that will be surprised when He comes. But those people that are following His word and desiring to do the work that He told us to do with a passion and a joy, those are the people that know He's coming and they're waiting up for Him. They're waiting to welcome Him, and they're going to experience a tremendous gift when He comes. And we all have that opportunity. But we have to get away from this stinking thinking of the churches today, and we have to start looking at what the Scriptures say. It's not about what I think, what you think, or what anyone else thinks. It's what Yeshua says in the Scriptures, what our Creator said in the Scriptures, and what our Creator said and Yeshua came to say is not contradicting each other. It's the same thing. However, what Yeshua says and what the church says does contradict each other. You see, the problem is when Yeshua was around, He had a problem with the Pharisees and the sages. This was an issue, and this is why there was such a split. But back then, the Pharisees and the sages were saying Yeshua wasn't religious enough. I tell you this, people, if he was around today, people would be saying he's too religious, because he's keeping the guidelines and instruction of his Father and telling people to do so. So you need to get your facts right here and redo the research for yourself and see for yourself. But that's what the scriptures say. And go tell your pastor that if they're teaching you that, oh, well, the old guidelines are done away with it. Because that's not what it says in the scriptures. All right, we have another question this week from Mary. And Mary says, I have a big question for you. Whoa, a big question. Okay, the question is, what about the part in scripture where it said that Yeshua says to remember 2 commandments, as if he is replacing the others with only these? Something about loving thy neighbor and thyself. My husband uses these as a basis for throwing away the 10, saying that if you follow this new law, the 10 are no longer necessary. Yeshua was summing up not only the 10, but all of the guidelines and the instructions. And again, how are you going to love thy neighbor as love thyself? And how are you going to love Yahweh with all your heart? You're going to love him by doing what he told us to do and living the life he told us to live. There's no new law. There's no new guidelines. This is just a stinking thinking by the church that's going to mess people up. There's no new guidelines or instructions. Yeshua told us in the beginning, and he told us in the middle, and he told us at the end what we need to be keeping and what we need to be doing as a benefit for us, for our health, for our salvation, for us to survive in this world. He told us what to do and how to do it, and he didn't come to change or do away with any of that. He came to be a living example and show us how to do that. So we need to understand and get this right. Understand the guidelines, instructions, or the law, as people want to call it, in the Old Testament came to take away and deal with the issue. That's why you have the sacrificial system. But when Yeshua came away, he gave us a beautiful gift of grace to tell us, I'm going to take away your sin nature. So Yeshua didn't just come to deal with the cause of the issue. He came to deal with the root of the issue. So through his grace, through the root of the issue, we no longer have that sinful nature desire, that fleshly desire to live our life in sin on a daily basis. And because of that, we no longer need to worry about keeping this law and keeping that law and keeping those things, not because it's not necessary, but because we don't need to worry about it, because our nature, our thinking has changed. The root of our nature has changed. So we don't need to worry about that because we're no longer living a life like that. But certainly that's there for a reason, and we still need to make sure that we're keeping the guidelines and instructions that he told us to live by. Here's the best way to guide this, everybody. If you're living a life like a non-believer, if you love what they love, if you look like they look, and if you do what they do, you have to question if you're really following the message of Scripture. If you're living a set-apart life, you're doing different, you're looking different, you're acting different, and you're thinking different, then you probably got a good scriptural message. But don't listen to me for it. Confirm it in Scripture. Read your scriptures at the beginning of the book, and I tell you, one of the biggest problems we have now is people don't know the book doesn't start with Matthew. The book starts with Genesis. The word Genesis means Bereshit and means beginning. So start with that, and then you decide for yourself what you should be doing and not be doing. But you could tell your husband if he wants to throw away the 10 Commandments and just hold on to 2 of them, you could tell him he might as well throw away Yeshua, because Yeshua didn't just come and say, do these 2 things only. He said to do what my Father told you to do. And if you look back in the scriptures, he says these are the things you must do throughout all your generations. All right, everybody, that's Paul Neeson with Torah Life Ministries. And if you have a question or a comment, well, why don't you post it below this video, and I'll get it to next week, and we'll discuss your question or comment. Anything about the scriptures, if you want to keep it about diet and health, that's fine, but I'll go anywhere and talk about any topic. That's what I love to do. And I'm doing my best to find it from the scriptures. So I look forward to those comments, everybody. This is Paul Neeson with the Real Life Health Show saying have a great day.
Seek the truth, avoid the evil, learn Yahweh's way.